The Green Bay Packers are heavy favorites on Sunday because of the way they handle quarterbacks as a franchise. And the Vikings, well, they're underdogs because they don't do it like that.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on the social media. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers, the #1 Packers podcast on the internet. And the show for fans who know what happened, they want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. The biggest reason why the Packers are favorites and why they are expected to win on Sunday and why they will win in all likelihood on Sunday is they have Jordan Love. And Jordan Love, I don't know if you guys know this, is better than J.J. McCarthy. Or at least has been better than J.J. McCarthy. We'll see what J.J. McCarthy becomes in his NFL career. I said on our squad show, I said to Luke Braun, I don't know how talented J.J. McCarthy is. He was, I wouldn't say an afterthought. That would be disingenuous. That would be unfair to McCarthy. But when you have a slew of quarterbacks go, 4 quarterbacks go in the first handful of picks, you have Michael Penix go, the NFL is telling you what they think of J.J. McCarthy's talent. And it's not just that he only threw a couple passes in the national championship when Michigan won their national championship. Yes, he is technically a national championship winning quarterback. But what the Vikings did was they thought they could take their veteran quarterback and they could send him out the door. And they thought their infrastructure was so solid, so good, that what McCarthy could step into was just be fine. And the team won't skip a beat, that they'll compete for a title right now. And their offseason, you can say, if you want to have your head in the sand, you can say that, well, the Vikings didn't really think they were going to compete this year for a Super Bowl anyway. That's nonsense. That's a word I can't say on Locked On Packers. They went out and they spent real money trying to improve this offensive line and this defensive front in a way that tells you they thought they were going to be good this year. And what did they do 2 years ago? They drafted a quarterback when what? When they needed to draft a quarterback. Andrew Brandt, former Packers executive, talks about this all the time. The best time to draft a quarterback is when you don't need one. That is what the Packers have done for 30 years now. I'm old, 30 years now. They did it. They traded for Brett Favre when they didn't need a quarterback. They drafted Aaron Rodgers when they didn't need a quarterback, and they drafted Jordan Love, much to the chagrin of plenty of Packer fans who wanted them to get something for Aaron Rodgers to go make some sort of late stage run in his NFL career. And look, Rodgers made his own run. Rodgers refocused and found that MVP form. And they made their run. It wasn't good enough, but it wasn't all because of what Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love, the lack of Jordan Love instead of, say, T. Higgins did. That team was good enough. The 2020 team was good enough. The 2021 team was good enough. I will always believe that. You will never convince me otherwise. But what Jordan Love was able to do was sit, watch, and when he was ready, the Packers were ready. And when they decided, now Aaron Rodgers was, part of the discussion here, and he didn't want to be in Green Bay anymore either. Let's not get it twisted. The Packers moved on. Jordan Love steps in. It was rocky for what, 10 games? And they have been in rocket ship mode ever since. They finished the season incredibly strong in 2023. They built that into an 11-win season in 2024. And they're on pace this year to win 11, 12 games. To potentially win the NFC North. They are the favorites on Sunday at home by a touchdown or thereabouts against the Vikings. They would not be touchdown favorites if Sam Darnold were still the quarterback for the Vikings. If Daniel Jones were the quarterback for the Vikings, they would not be a touchdown favorite. The Vikings would probably have a different record if either of those two guys were the quarterback as well. It's not just that Minnesota miscalculated. It's that the process was not particularly strong. And I've never quite understood what Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, the GM for the Vikings, is doing. He makes a lot of decisions and a lot of moves that I don't particularly understand. But this quarterback situation is a mess for Minnesota. I understand, like our pal Luke Braun yesterday was joking, like, okay, on social media, they wanted him benched last week, and the Vikings never really were that close to actually benching him. That's all well and good to say, but I have eyes. I can watch. I can see how bad JJ McCarthy is playing. I can see Justin Jefferson on the sidelines getting incredibly frustrated with what he's having to deal with. This team, all of the players, thought they were going to compete this year for a Super Bowl. Our pal Zach Cruz had these stats. Right now, JJ McCarthy ranks 35th. Ranks among 35 quarterbacks with 150 dropbacks this season. So this is out of 35 qualifying quarterbacks. Turnover-worthy plays. First. He is the worst quarterback in the NFL. Turnover-worthy play rate. Adjusting completion percentage, he is 33rd out of 35. Pressure to sack rate, he turns pressures into sacks 22% of the time. That's 27th. His clean pocket passer rating. So how you perform in a clean pocket is one of the best predictors of success moving forward. He is dead ass last. DFL. Dead, you know what, last. Adjusted yards per attempt. Oh my God. 4.3 in adjusted yards per attempt. That is also last. It's not just that he has not matched the bar that Sam Darnold had last year. Though, of course, he has not done that. And I was trying to explain, the Vikings organization clearly thought he could at least come close. Like what they thought they were getting from JJ McCarthy was, even if he's not Sam Darnold, who was probably the 12th, 14th, 15th best quarterback in the NFL last year, they thought, okay, if he's the 20th best quarterback, the infrastructure is such that with play calling and improved offensive line, Ryan Kelly, Will Fries, they added players there. They added to the defensive front, make the run defense a little bit better. This was a top 5 defense overall last year. If you have a really good defense, a really good run game, a good offensive line, and one of the best skill groups, pass catchers in the NFL, it'll work. And look, I understand that. I think that's real. I did not think, even as I was saying, hey, you are asking too much of JJ McCarthy to recreate what Sam Darnold did and be even the 20th best quarterback in the NFL. That is asking a de facto rookie way too much. I did not think he would be among the worst quarterbacks, preferred starters at least, in the NFL. But he is. And it is hard. It is hard to separate that performance from the process. From, hey, you can make the case, especially in retrospect, given the way he's looked, reached for JJ McCarthy, and or they tried to get him going a little too soon. They put him out there before he was ready to perform. Now, I believe good quarterbacks who turn out to be good, you see it right away. You go back and you look at history. There are not that many quarterbacks who, through 10, 18, 20 games, and JJ doesn't have that, look like the worst quarterback in the NFL. And even Jordan Love, when he was struggling, first 3 weeks of the season, he was top 5 in all the efficiency metrics. Out the gate, we saw the playmaking ability. The first game against the Chicago Bears, like his ability to make plays on third downs, it was evident what he was able to do. We haven't seen any of that from JJ McCarthy. And it is impossible to separate that from what we see now. And it's impossible to separate what we see now from the way in which McCarthy arrived in Minnesota. When they had to have a quarterback because they'd moved on from Kirk Cousins, they had Sam Darnold in-house, they had Daniel Jones in-house, and they decided, nah, Aaron Rodgers, we're not going to do that. We're not going to pay Sam Darnold. We're not going to pay Daniel Jones to keep him. We're going to roll with JJ McCarthy. Well, JJ McCarthy stinks, man. He freaking stinks, bro. This team that's trying to compete right now, the Packers turned that team with all those rookies in 2023, with all those first-time starters, into a playoff team. The youngest team in the NFL, the youngest team to ever win a playoff game. This is a veteran Vikings team. They should be ready to roll. But because they are getting bad, flat-out bad quarterback play, they are in the position where they are right now, where Luke Braun, yesterday on Locked On Packers, said this Viking season is already over. Now you still have to go out and beat them if you're the Packers. And if you do, you put yourself in really good position for the playoffs. But the difference between these two organizations, and there's plenty of talent on this Vikings roster. Take the quarterbacks away, they're not that different. But the quarterback is the most important position on the field. If you have the right quarterback, that can cover for a lot of other roster sins if you have them. The Packers got it right. At least right now, the Vikings, they didn't. Let's talk more about some Packers-Vikings matchups next on Locked On Packers. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season, whether you're following the NFL, the NBA, or both. There's no better time to jump in on the action. If you haven't tried it yet, PrizePicks is the simplest way to play. Just pick more or less than at least 2 player stats, and if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere PrizePicks operates. Plus, right now, I love this feature. It's my favorite feature. You can stack player stats. You can pick more on Steph Curry, points, threes, and assists in the same lineup. And if you get it right, you win. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. This game, to me, comes down to 2 critical stats, one on each side of the ball. This Vikings defense is the worst deep ball passing defense by EPA in the NFL. The Packers have not been able to generate explosive plays. Jordan Love is one of the only quarterbacks in the NFL without a touchdown pass longer than 20 yards this season. And that is weird. It's weird. You would not expect that from a team that throws the ball down the field as often as they do. And so you meet the movable object, as it were. The team that allows those plays at a high rate. And so for the Packers, you're going to take your shots and you're going to make it work. The Christian Watson touchdown, 17 yards, not okay, so now we're quibbling. But The fact that the Packers have pushed the ball over the course of the season as much as they have and have not scored on deep plays is a little bit of an outlier. Like, you just wouldn't expect that. Now, I know Jordan Love's ADOT has fallen since early in the season when they were pushing the ball down the field a ton. This is a defense that plays a lot of too high, and so they're trying to prevent some of those big plays, but they're also a chaos defense. And so they are trying to create confusion. They are trying to blitz you and speed up your rhythm and your tempo, but they just haven't been able to make enough quarterbacks uncomfortable to prevent them from pushing the ball down the field. And so if you're the Packers, this is a place you can exploit. This is your Christian Watson game. This is your Matthew Golden game. It's an opportunity for this Packers team to get on track doing the kinds of things they would already be trying to do. And it's something that the Vikings struggle to defend. That is what you're trying. Like, the Packers have not been a great deep ball team, but this Minnesota Vikings defense, this is crazy. Yes, they are last. Now, the teams don't throw deep on them a lot. In fact, this is one of the best teams in the NFL avoiding deep passes, precisely because teams are worried they can't protect against a lot of these exotic looks from Brian Flores. But the Packers are going to get in situations. They're going to heavy play action you, 6 offensive linemen. They're going to take their shots. You know Jordan Love is going to huck that ball down the field. On deep passes, the Vikings are allowing 1.35 EPA. Just think about that for a second. That means every, 5 passes, they're giving up a touchdown? That's bad. The Packers are 14th in deep EPA at 0.51. So the Vikings are giving up deep passes on a per attempt basis more than twice as worse as what the Packers are currently creating. That's a good recipe if you're the Packers. That is a good position to be in if you're the Packers. Flip the sides of the ball. One of the places the Packers have been vulnerable this year is in the middle of the field. Their linebackers are gettable in coverage. And part of what they're going to do is they're going to send everybody back, and they're going to let you make those underneath throws. You want to throw the ball underneath to the middle of the field, you can do that. The Vikings are 32nd in middle of the field EPA. How many teams play in the NFL? So this is a team that is just not great at doing something that the Packers struggle to defend. If you're going to beat the Packers, you have to throw the ball in the middle of the field. Quay Walker dealing with an injury. It could be even worse this week. Except that this is something the Vikings stink at doing. Part of the reason is JJ McCarthy is 6'1". He's not going to stand in there and make those throws over the middle of the field. The difference between 6'1" and 6'4", 6'5" is enormous. It's a huge difference because those offensive linemen are all 6'4", 6'5". So if you can't see over those guys in the middle of the field and all the defensive tackles are 6'4", 6'5", Jalen Carter, 6'6", 6'5", whatever he is. Jordan Davis, 6'6". We saw a couple weeks ago how impactful those guys can be. We saw against the Lions how impactful those guys. I mean, those are redwood trees you're trying to throw the ball around. That is extremely difficult business to be trying to accomplish in the middle of the field. So if you're a shorter quarterback and you don't have guys that are great, like Justin Jefferson could attack the middle of the field, Jordan Addison could attack the middle of the field, it's just not something they want to do because things can get muddy in there. You have to throw with anticipation in there. You have to throw that dig when Justin Jefferson is just about to get out of his break, because if you wait, now that safety is crashing down from the deep half and he's making a play on the ball. And JJ McCarthy is one of the least accurate throwers in the NFL this season. Now, if you're a cynical Packer fan, I understand. You're going to say, well, this is the week they're going to do all those things. Look, maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. But Tigers don't tend to change their stripes, especially this late in the season. I mean, Thanksgiving, we're a week from Thanksgiving, less than a week now from Thanksgiving. You are what you are at this point in the season. But you're not going to change that much of what your offense is. You are what you are at this point. Could the Vikings go into Lambeau Field and score 30 points against the Packers? Yeah, I suppose they could, theoretically. Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, those guys are that good. Kevin O'Connell is that good as a coach. But if it were that easy, why didn't they do it before? This Packers defense does not give up explosive plays. Number one in the league, not allowing 10-yard plus plays. Number one in the league, not allowing 20-plus yard plays. The Vikings have tried to be a shot play team. Introduce the variance. JJ McCarthy, not going to hit a lot of those, but if you hit enough, just hit a couple and make your defense give yourself a chance. That was the formula. The formula has not worked. For the Packers, the Venn diagram of the things that they do well and the things the Vikings don't do well, and then flip it. The things that they don't do well and the things the Vikings do well is very much in Green Bay's favor. You got to play to your strengths. You got to maximize those opportunities, and you'll win. All right, injuries are a factor. The Packers injury report is long. We'll talk about that next on Locked On Packers. The NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. And let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle. Between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout, it's frustrating. That's why you should use Gametime, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Gametime is fast, it's easy, and it's backed by the Gametime guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. With zone deals, you pick the section, Gametime picks the seats, and you save big. Download the Gametime app. Create an account and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. It does sound like Josh Jacobs is trying to make a push to play in this game. Practiced yesterday. The injury report is obviously something we have to watch every Friday, but this is one where right now there is, and the running joke is this is a CVS receipt for the Packers. Green Bay, unlike some other teams, I'm not naming any names, 49ers, Ravens, others, they will over-report injuries. And I think they are generally overly cautious in practice with injuries. Now, they are not, or at least haven't been recently, overly cautious with playing players who are hurt. In fact, if anything, they have become significantly more aggressive in playing players who are hurt. But we also found out Marshawn Lloyd not coming off the IR window this week. Jaden Reed not opening that window this week. Matt LaFleur said, look, we're not going to open a window if we can't start practicing at the beginning of the week. Does that mean that Reed and Lloyd are both definitely not going to be around for the Detroit game? No. Is it close to that? Yeah, it probably is. Probably is. Do not expect to see either of those guys before December would be my suggestion to you. But there are a lot of players on this injury report who it doesn't seem like they're really in any jeopardy of playing. They've been limited all week. The Packers are being cautious because they know that it's not just this week. It's the short week next week. And then you've got the Bears. And then you've got December. And then hopefully you've got January football in all of this. The one to watch for me is Quay Walker. How does he ultimately come through this week? Because the middle of the field, which is what we just talked about, the middle of the field defense, is a question mark. And it is even more of a question mark if Isaiah McDuffie is going to be out there. Kevin O'Connell is a good enough coach to understand that, okay, they weren't a good middle of the field defense before. Now they're playing a backup linebacker maybe we have some opportunities here. Maybe we need to have a game plan centered around trying to attack the middle of the field and just make JJ McCarthy make some throws. Give him some opportunities to go do the thing. Whether or not they can do that is a separate question, of course, but I think that's something that if you're a smart coach, and I think Kevin O'Connell, unfortunately for the Packers, it's nice when you have a division full of know-nothings, and the Packers, for a lot of at least my sentient life, have been a division where the coaches, like you're talking about Dick Duran and, some really bad coaches over the years in the NFC North. This is not that. Dan Campbell is a really smart coach. Kevin O'Connell is an awesome coach and schemer. Ben Johnson is a really good schemer. We don't know if he's an awesome coach quite yet. And so, that very much TBD, but Kevin O'Connell is a smart coach. And so you do expect going into any given week that he's going to find opportunities to exploit your weaknesses. Right now, we don't know. I think O'Connell has not lost his fastball trying to do that. I think the reality is his quarterback stinks. So how much can he do to make life easier on his quarterback? Well, middle of the field throws, unless they're off play action, are just like, they can be tricky. They can be muddy. There's a reason why guys like Jalen Hurts and Russell Wilson and JJ McCarthy, Aaron Rodgers, don't like throwing to the middle of the field. Those reads can be muddy. You've got to throw these high-low throws. You got to get the ball over the linebacker and in front of the safety. That requires touch. JJ McCarthy does not throw well with touch. He wants to throw fastballs on everything. By the way, a trait that a lot of young quarterbacks share. So I don't know how big a deal the Quay Walker injury is, because I think JJ McCarthy is just not the quarterback to take advantage of those opportunities. But certainly Kevin O'Connell is the coach to take advantage of those opportunities. So that is something that you have to pay attention to here. I think the offensive line, you got to make sure they're 100%. It seems like they're going to be okay heading into this game. Your secondary is intact with Keyshawn Nixon, Carrington Valentine, Javon Bullard. Javon Bullard, by the way, I wanted to make a segment out of Javon Bullard this week, and we just didn't get a chance to do it. But he's playing a really good season this year in the nickel. Like, he has just been like, it's like Nate Hobbs. It doesn't even matter as we sit here heading toward Thanksgiving that he's been, in and out of the lineup and not very good on the outside. It hasn't mattered because Javon Bullard has been really good as a nickel. You thought he was going to come in and he could play some boundary on 3rd and 8, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 12. He could play the nickel. Well, he hasn't been out there, and it hasn't mattered, really. And in fact, it's mattered more that he has been out there because those have been some of the issues. One of the reasons that they tied with the Cowboys is because Nate Hobbs did not play great. Now, I've said this before. I'll say it again. A lot of that stuff was not his fault. It was schematic issues. He's just out leveraged on some of these plays, given where he's supposed to play, and he's supposed to have safety help. There was a touchdown. He's supposed to have safety help. Xavier McKinney got a little caught, playing down and was not able to give the kind of help that he was supposed to give. At least that's, what my read of the call was. I talked to a defensive coach about it, and he felt the same way. So, this Packers team, I think, is going to be healthy enough that the injuries are not going to play a meaningful role in the game. And I think in some ways, Josh Jacobs being out simplifies things for you on offense if he's out or if he's limited, because it's Jacobs, it's Emmanuel Wilson on early downs. You play Chris Brooks on 3rd down, and that's enough, because Chris Brooks, a terrific, I think the preeminent pass protector at running back in the NFL right now. That's not hyperbole. I think he's the best pass protecting running back in the NFL right now. So Emmanuel Wilson on early downs, Chris Brooks on 3rd down, that's a winning formula for the Packers. So we'll be live after the game. For a half an hour after the game, you'll have Locked On Packers here. And then for 60 more minutes, we'll have the Locked On Packers squad show. So follow me on the socials. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you get podcasts. Subscribe on YouTube. We will be live on YouTube after the game. Locked On Packers and the Locked On Packers squad show. So you can stay Locked On Packers.